from minus 1,300 to minus 1,200 IC. With so much warpstone to be gained in this expedition, and lacking any unifying guidance to coordinate their attacks, the newly formed Council of 13 had to step in and take command. Under their ruthless tyranny, the Council directed the numerous clans into a single, unified force, coordinating massive assaults by using the numerous tunnel networks to infiltrate the mountain from below. So it was not one clan, but many hordes burst into the fortress of NAGASH, seeking to overrun it from below, as they had done so already to many dwarven holds. But the undead horses of Nagash were limitless. Thousands upon thousands of his warriors would rise up against the assailants that would dare to defile their master's home, and those SKAVEN that were killed in battle only rose up to further bolster their numbers. Savage tunnel fighting lasted for months underneath the mountain. Unable to wear down such a powerful foe, the SKAVEN were forced into a stalemate. In an effort to bolster the SKAVEN war effort, the Council employed the services of Clan Scryer and their warlock engineers to break the deadlock, bringing with them a whole arsenal of powerful war machines. However, Nagash had anticipated this, and with his astounding power, he exerted his will upon their machines, and the crude constructs briefly flickered, and then died. Desperate to achieve a victory on the fortress, the SKAVEN horde struck the lands above, besieging the settlements of Nagash's human followers. Whole cities burned, and the SKAVEN looked as if they would be able to crush their foes from the surface. However, the human followers feared Nagash far more than the rat men, and with this fear, the humans fought desperately against their assault. With their assault faltering, the war dragged on for more than a century. It was finally, after nearly 100 years of stalemate, that the Council realized that they could not win this war, and that the expedition was costing far too many resources to continue any further. However, just as all hope seemed lost, an odd turn of events began to unfold that turned to the SKAVEN's favor. The Council received an envoy from Nagash, proposing an end to the hostilities and proposed a pact of cooperation. The terms of the pact were that in exchange for the SKAVEN's aid, Nagash would supply the rat men with huge quantities of warpstone mined beneath Cripple Peak. Although the SKAVEN's greed desired the entire warpstone deposit for themselves alone, the SKAVEN armies could not fight another century-long stalemate, forcing the Council to begrudgingly agree. After claw-marking the pact, the Council of 13 ordered all SKAVEN forces to maintain a diplomatic distance while they attempted more stealthy methods to usurp the coveted resources. Most efforts failed, but reconnaissance reports of other significant sources of warpstone were being discovered around the peaks. When Nagash sent more emissaries to offer the Council more warpstone in exchange for luring orc tribes into the cursed pit, the Council redoubled their spying efforts to find out what Nagash was planning. At first, their spies could learn little, save that the growing armies of the Necromancer set sail into the Sour Sea in ships of bone. Upon their return, observers reported the ships bore only a single prisoner, a human king of some southern realm. Then, something began which the council needed no spies to report. A great gathering of terrible dark energy being felt over Cripple Peak. Mounting storm clouds of dark power heralded a mighty spell intended to reshape the entire face of the world. Nightmares stalked the surface world, and portents of doom were abound. The Grey Seers were struck by visions of the imminent future, and dark omens racked their feeble and frail minds. Fearful of the coming doom, the Council of 13 hurriedly gathered within the halls of SKAVEN Blight. Using every single asset available to them, the now unified council scried far and wide for clues to Nagash's intention. To their horror, far to the south, they found their answer, flowing like a dusty river of bone. A massive horde, probably the largest army ever known in history, with literally millions upon millions of restless undead warriors going on the war march, answering the summoning call of NAGASH. It was already the mightiest army the world had ever seen, and more of the foul undead were already rising all across the world to join the growing legions. Before such an army, no foe in the known world would be able to stand, not even the numerous hordes of the Under Empire. Terror gripped the council, for the SKAVEN lords knew that the Under Empire would be the first to be besieged by this massive force. Their network of spies, observers, and lookouts had relayed information that all was silent in Nagash, as the great Necromancer was forced into a trance after his undertaking of the great ritual. The entire council realized that Nagash had to be destroyed, or else the Necromancer would reign forever as the Lord of the Dead. But none in the council knew how to undermine such a powerful entity as Nagash, and the council argued over what their course of action would be. No SKAVEN in the entire Under Empire had the courage or skill to face such a foe, and so the council needed to look for another, more willing champion. The salvation of the council, and indeed the entire known world, lay deep within the dungeons of Nagash itself. The human king, the ruler of a long-gone kingdom, lay broken, but his will still strong, and dire vengeance burning within this searing heart. The council acted quickly, knowing that the human needed a weapon so mighty that it would ensure the death of even the Lord of the Dead. It mattered not whether the king would die, for he knew that his own life was fading, and he would ensure that the world would not suffer the same fate as his people had. All of the council members agreed, and so they began the creation of the dreaded weapon. With utmost urgency, the council forged a blade made of the purest warpstone ever gathered from Cripple Peak. The Grey Seers all wove mighty spells and curses of doom upon the molten metal, whilst the warlock engineers of Clan Skryre inscribed dire runes so deadly that to read them would mean death to the beholder. The final attachment to this mighty weapon was a device embedded within the hilt of the sword, which allowed the council to watch and channel their powers into the human king. Even before the blade cooled, it was sheathed within a large lead casket and was rushed towards Cripple Peak to stop Nagash before it was too late. Using secret tunnels to gain access to Nagashizar, a lone hooded SKAVEN crept within the dungeon. Silently, he freed the king and opened the lead casket before fleeing into the darkness. The king grasped the sword, and with unholy power, the council guided the king towards the throne room. As the king entered the room, he saw Nagash sitting alone in his throne and at his weakest. With the dust clouds of the undead horde coming nearer by the hour, the human king knew that he needed to end all this now. With faltering steps, the king approached, hesitating before the towering figure of Nagash. Aided by the council's mental urging, he finally struck. At the last moment, the necromancer raised a claw to ward off the blow. The felled blade was far too powerful, however, to ward and clove through Nagash's spell, cleanly cutting the necromancer's upraised wrist. In retaliation, the great necromancer snapped out of his stupor to unleash a deadly blast at the king. The council reeled as they channeled more and more energy to protect their pawn from harm. Two ancient rat lords exploded as they died, deflecting such a titanic blow. It was an epic struggle to behold, as a king of the living and the lord of the dead fought for dominance of the mortal world. With his last ounce of strength, the king once more drove on and struck the necromancer's decaying body. The king went mad with vengeance, hacking at Nagash with every bit of strength he still possessed, until at last his sword's deadly enchantments took hold. Soon the fell blade penetrated through the iron-hard, magically enhanced bones of the necromancer, until finally he lay shattered in 1,000 pieces. With his death, the world had been saved from a grim and silent end. The council saw their champion stagger away as the king looked across his once beautiful land. His land and his people were no more, and the king wept at the sight, despair washing over the fire within his heart. The king walked aimlessly back to the kingdom he once ruled, with the fell blade taking more and more of his life and soul away until he finally fell upon the river Mortis. There the king died, and the legendary hero's body was never seen again. The SKAVEN quickly overran the fortress following Nagash's defeat, while the entire council personally oversaw the complete destruction of Nagash's remains as the SKAVEN cast his bones onto a smoldering warp forge, destroying him utterly. Unbeknownst to the rest of the world, the threat to all life was averted, and the most powerful necromancer the world had ever seen was slain by the treachery of the SKAVEN. The Council of 13, in upheaval after the loss of its Seer Lord, ordered Clan Rikek to proceed with mining operations on Cripple Peak while the Council oversaw their work. The clan leader, Warlord Grask, became an aspiring member of the Council of 13 and quickly established himself a permanent seat within the council chamber. The clan crushed what was left of Nagash's empire, including the enslavement of the humans under his former reign. Using both SKAVEN and human slaves, the clan excavated never-before-seen amounts of warpstone out of Cripple Peak and transported the minerals back to SKAVEN Blight. With this much wealth, Clan Rikek naturally grew in power and promptly renamed Cripple Peak as Fortress Rikek.